Hey there. You ever get this feeling
Yeah.
like something's just off with how we approach health these days?
Totally.
It's like beyond the latest diet fads or the miracle cures.
Yeah.
Deep down, something's just fundamentally broken.
Yeah.
And you're definitely not alone if you're feeling that
Yeah.
your request for this deep dive tells me you're feeling it too.
Mm.
And trust me, this Joe Rogan episode we're about to unpack is going to really get those wheels turning.
For sure.
What's so fascinating about this particular episode is it's not your typical health guru spiel.
Right.
We're talking about an episode that features Dr. Casey Means.
Mhm.
She's a Stanford-trained surgeon.
Wow. Okay.
And Calley Means, a former political lobbyist.
Interesting.
Pretty unexpected duo, to say the least.
Yeah, that is a very interesting combo.
So what makes this conversation so powerful is you've got Dr. Means, who was at the top of her game in traditional medicine, right?
Right.
But she left.
She left. Why?
Feeling like something was deeply wrong with the system itself. And then there's Calley Means. He was working inside the belly of the beast,
Oh, really?
lobbying for big food and big pharma,
Wow.
until a crisis of conscience made him completely switch sides.
I see.
Talk about seeing both sides of the coin.
That's fascinating. So they both had these kind of like insider perspectives.
Exactly.
And came together.
And it's in that unusual pairing that they uncover this shared concern that goes way beyond like your typical healthcare debates.
Okay.
It's about this system-wide threat to our well-being
Okay.
that's so deeply ingrained, most of us don't even realize it's happening.
Gotcha.
So buckle up,
Okay.
because they kick things off by dropping some seriously alarming statistics about the state of American health.
Okay.
And we're not just talking about feeling a little sluggish after a meal.
Right.
These numbers paint a pretty bleak picture.
Like what?
So picture this. Nearly 3 out of every 4 people you pass on the street are struggling with their weight.
Really?
74% of Americans are overweight or obese.
Wow. 74%.
That's a lot more common than most people realize, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's easy to feel like you're the only one.
Mm.
But when you hear a statistic like that, it's like, wow, this is a much bigger problem than any one person.
Right.
And it gets even more concerning when you look at the explosion of type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
We're talking about a condition that was practically unheard of a few generations ago.
Right.
And now 50% of adults either have it or are pre-diabetic.
Wow. That's half.
That's half the adult population.
Half of adults.
It's like every time you turn around, there's a new study about another health issue on the rise, right?
Yes.
It's Alzheimer's, dementia, cancers in younger adults,
Yeah.
infertility, autoimmune diseases, and the list just goes on and on.
Yeah, it seems like every week there's a new headline
Exactly.
about some other thing going wrong.
And here's the crucial point. These aren't just isolated issues.
Oh, okay.
They make it very clear. It's not just bad luck
Right.
or individual choices, though those things obviously play a role. But these skyrocketing rates of chronic disease point to a systemic breakdown
Okay.
on a cellular level,
Right.
a failure in what's called metabolic health.
So metabolic health,
Yeah.
that's a term we hear more and more.
Yeah,
What does that
yeah.
actually mean?
I'm so glad you asked,
Yeah.
because it's one of those buzzwords that gets thrown around, and I don't think people really understand what it means.
Right.
It's essentially how our bodies use energy.
Okay.
Think of it like this intricate machinery that keeps our cells humming along.
Okay.
And when that machinery starts to malfunction, that's metabolic dysfunction, it sets off this domino effect
Yeah.
that impacts every other aspect of our health.
It makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So if this metabolic dysfunction is at the root of so many health problems, why aren't we hearing more about it?
Right.
Like, you would think this would be medical textbook 101.
Yeah, you would think. Right.
If you go to the doctor, you're having these problems, they'd be like, oh, well, let's look at your metabolic health.
First step. But as Dr. Means points out, it's not really emphasized.
Yeah.
Most medical schools dedicate surprisingly little time to nutrition education.
Oh, wow. So they're not even equipped
They're really not.
to deal with this.
They're not taught to see metabolic dysfunction as the central factor
Right.
driving chronic disease.
So doctors aren't even being given the tools
Yeah, it's amazing.
to understand this crucial aspect of health.
Yeah, it's a huge problem.
No wonder so many of us feel like we're hitting a wall when we're trying to get answers.
Right, and it's not just medical education, actually.
Okay.
The guests argue that the way our healthcare system is structured actually creates a disincentive
Oh, interesting.
to address root causes like this.
How so?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
The current system profits from treating diseases,
Yeah.
not preventing them.
Right. Oh,
So there's more financial incentive to manage symptoms with medication
right.
than to actually address the underlying factors that are making people sick in the first place.
Yeah. It's kind of a light bulb moment
Yeah.
when you realize that, because you're like,
Yeah.
oh, wait a minute.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
The system is kind of working against us a little bit.
And so much of what they talk about in this episode, too, is like, this idea that we're surrounded by these ultra-processed foods. And, we've all been told, like, oh, if you eat less and you exercise more, you'll lose weight. And it's like, well,
It's not that simple.
it's not that simple.
Obviously, diet and exercise matter, but
Right.
there's more to it.
But there are these other things
Yes,
that are working against us,
definitely.
like literally our willpower.
Yeah.
So it's not just a coincidence that those sugary cereals and snacks
Right.
are so hard to resist.
Well, designed that way.
They're literally designed to keep us hooked.
Yes.
And that just blows my mind.
It's a really disturbing thought.
That we're talking about like serious engineering
Yes.
and science that goes into making these foods.
So addictive.
Absolutely.
It's not an accident that you can't just eat one potato chip, right?
Exactly. And they draw a direct line in the episode
This is what I love, yeah.
between the rise of ultra-processed foods
Yeah.
and former cigarette industry scientists.
You're kidding, right?
Nope.
Cigarette companies are involved
No way. Yeah.
in the food that's making us sick.
It's a trip.
Yeah.
I mean, how is that even legal?
Well, it's a complicated issue, but the point is
I know.
it's the same playbook in a way.
That's so crazy. And then, okay, on top of that,
Right.
we've got this whole thing with high fructose corn syrup.
Ugh. Yeah.
Like, what is the deal with that stuff?
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's in everything.
They were saying something about how it, disrupts our biology.
Yeah, so basically it mimics this process
Okay.
that's meant for hibernation.
What?
Yeah, it turns out that the way our bodies process high fructose corn syrup is very similar to how animals store up fat when they're preparing for hibernation.
Oh, wow.
So it's like our bodies are stuck
Okay.
in this constant state of getting ready for winter.
It's like we're all bears, but winter never ends.
Exactly. And that constant state of fat storage
Yeah.
is not good.
Not good for our health long term.
Right. But it doesn't stop there.
Okay, there's more.
Oh, yeah. They go on to reveal other surprising culprits
Okay.
lurking in our environment, our food supply.
Give me some more. Hit me.
So they talked about everything from plastics, which act as what they call xenoestrogens in our bodies,
Right, that wasn't a new one for me.
to pesticides that mess with our hormones,
Yeah.
and how these everyday exposures could be contributing
Yeah.
to a whole host of issues.
Like what? What's an example?
Well, for instance, they talk about girls going through puberty earlier now.
Oh, yeah.
And how the breakdown of certain plastics mimicking estrogen in the body
Oh, wow.
might be a contributing factor.
See, and that's the thing that I find so disturbing is it's like, these are things that we're all exposed to
Daily. Yeah.
every single day.
Yeah.
And we don't even realize it.
It's scary, actually.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
What are we supposed to do? Like live in a bubble.
Okay.
I got to admit, this is a lot to take in.
Right. It's heavy stuff.
Yeah, it feels like we're surrounded by these invisible threats.
Yeah.
And we don't even have the tools to really fight back.
It's a lot.
Like, it's enough to make you want to just give up and grab another bag of chips.
Totally. I get it. And that's why I appreciate the direction this episode takes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because they don't leave us in that state of despair.
Okay.
They actually offer a sense of hope
Okay.
and empowerment.
So what can we do?
Yeah, what can we do?
Like, how do we even begin to navigate this minefield and, reclaim our metabolic health?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it starts with information, right?
Right.
Like Dr. Means, she's a huge proponent of becoming your own advocate.
Okay.
So don't be afraid to talk to your doctor about this stuff. Okay?
Even if they don't bring it up,
Yeah.
ask them about metabolic health.
Yeah.
Request those specific tests.
Yep.
Demand more information.
I love that. Demand more information.
Knowledge is power.
Right.
Absolutely.
And, if you have access to things like HSAs
Yeah.
or FSAs,
Yeah.
remember those funds can often be used for things like gym memberships, healthy foods, even certain supplements.
You know what? I have both of those accounts.
No.
And it never even occurred to me to use them for that.
Really?
I was always so focused on saving them for doctor visits and prescriptions.
It's amazing how we're conditioned to think that way. Like,
Well-
oh, I'm saving it for when I'm sick.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you can use it to actually prevent getting sick.
What a missed opportunity
Told
to actually, invest in preventing those problems.
It's a perfect example of how we can start to shift our mindset
Yes.
from treatment to prevention.
No, it's not just about individual action either.
Right. Because we can't just buy our way out of this problem.
Yeah.
We need bigger systemic changes.
Well,
And they talk about that too.
okay.
They urge us to support movements like regenerative agriculture
Okay.
and local farmers who are working to produce truly nourishing food.
Right. It's like voting with our dollars in a way.
It is.
You know, supporting businesses and practices that align with our values.
Totally.
All of that.
And don't underestimate the power of making noise.
Okay.
Like, talk to your friends,
Yeah.
your family, share what you're learning.
Spread the word.
The more we raise awareness about these issues,
Yeah.
the more we can push for that systemic change.
You know what? You requesting this very deep dive is a perfect example of that.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
You saw something
Yeah.
that resonated with you.
It did.
You were like, something's not right. I need to understand this better.
Right.
And now you're taking that knowledge
Right.
and you're sharing it with others. You
Yeah.
know, it's like this ripple effect.
That's what I'm hoping for.
It only takes one person sometimes to start asking the right questions.
Exactly.
And those questions lead to more questions.
Yeah.
And eventually we start demanding better.
Right. We deserve better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to kind of like bring this whole thing home,
Yeah.
Dr. Means has this really powerful quote.
Okay.
She says, "Our bodies are temples and we're destroying them."
Oh, powerful.
And I think that really sums it up. You know,
It does.
it's like this isn't just about like fitting into our genes.
Yeah.
This is about reclaiming our health
Yeah.
and demanding a system that prioritizes well-being
Yes.
over profit.
Absolutely.
And if you're feeling inspired to take that next step,
Yeah.
we'll be sure to link to all the resources mentioned in the episode in the show notes.
Perfect.
Like Dr. Means and Calley Means, they co-authored this book called Good Energy,
Awesome.
and they go even deeper into all of this stuff.
Great.
We'll also link to TrueMed,
Okay.
which is Calley's company,
Yeah.
that's focused on making preventative care more accessible.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So if you want to learn more, definitely check those out.
For sure.
But for now, I think the biggest takeaway is this. Awareness is key.
It is.
We've got to start paying attention to what's going on,
Yeah.
both in our bodies and in the world around us.
Right.
And most importantly, we can't be afraid to question the status quo.
We have a voice.
Exactly.
We need to use it.
This deep dive may be over, but the conversation is just beginning.
What will you do with this information?
Choose wisely.
Choose wisely, indeed. Thanks for being here for this deep dive.